Hello, everybody. Guess what? We are now at episode 40 of Scale Up Podcasts. I know many of you thought we'd never get here, but we did. We're not giving up. This is an exciting process for me, in part because it gives me the chance to sort of ask all these questions that otherwise people would just think I'm snoopy. This way I get a chance to legitimize all the questions that I can think of, to ask all these fascinating, amazing companies that I get a chance to host on Scale Up Podcasts. So it's important. I think what we're doing is very important because it's showing you what the real life of a growing company is. And we see companies from all over the world. We see companies of all different kinds, technology, not technology, car washes, software, cybersecurity, everything else. And today we have very interesting, they all are interesting, right? We have a very, very interesting example of what some people might call a prop tech or property technology company that I've had the privilege of investing in and also watching grow over the years. And so it's a very special opportunity because it's a different kind of venture, which you'll see very soon. So I'd like to, with great excitement and pleasure, invite the two co-founders, Yael Shemer and Yishai Lehavi. Say hello just to hear your voices.
Hello, everyone. So good to be here, Dan. Thanks for having us.
All right.
Along the journey, of course.
So you can probably figure out which one is Yishai and which one is Yael. Anyway, first of all, tell us just in 2 sentences, I'm limiting you, just 2 sentences, something that we can't know about you from LinkedIn. That's the first question that I didn't give you any chance to prepare for. If something we can't find out from Google or Claude or chat. And I see each one of you is pointing to the other one, so the other one goes first.
I can get started. So my name is Yael Shemer. I'm the co-founder and CCO of Tulu. You can very much find that online. In my free time, I would say I like to dance.
Really? What kind of dance? I do too.
I like bachata and salsa and free dancing, ecstatic dance.
Wait a second. This is a different podcast session. You know, 15 years I danced salsa at least 3 times a week in the social scene in Boston. I've danced in Israel. I've studied all around the world and danced all around the world as well. So we have to have a conversation about that.
You should. Awesome.
I'm at least twice your age, I'm guessing. So we may never have danced together. But
who knows?
Until the pandemic, I just on Friday night, I was in Providence at a salsa social.
That was cool.
I assume you dance on 2 because on 1 isn't real salsa. Anyway, that's a whole conversation. Oh, exciting. You think you know people. Yishai. So what do you dance? Yishai?
Yeah. A whole conversation that has nothing to do with me. I'm not dancing, but I guess what you cannot learn from my LinkedIn is that in my previous life, before for Tulu, I was more active in the political stuff. That unfortunately is not part of my current life.
You don't have time for that, but just give us a sentence what you mean by political and what you did.
Being an activist and everything about potential better future for Israelis and Palestinians in our region.
Which is a topic that we could have, and not just one podcast, but a whole series on these days. So we won't go into it now, even though it's also something I think a lot about and have been involved in to some extent. So before we get into what Tulu actually does, but what does it mean?
Well, Yishai, in his previous life, was also an architect. So when we looked for a name, I remember Yishai called me one day and said, I found the name. And Tulu, and Yishai, please help me with the facts. I believe it's either from the 12th century in China. And these are circular buildings. They're called earth buildings or Tulu buildings in a district in China, which I may mispronounce. But the idea behind a Tulu building, and you should Google it, it's beautiful. These are circular buildings that in the outer ring, the community, each person or a family has a room with just a bed. And then in the inner ring, there's the community space with amenities like a theater, a laundry room, a kitchen. And we are really adjusting that vision for the 21st century with our technology.
That's exciting because I thought, because I'm fluent in Hebrew, I thought Tulu meant Tulo, and that's it, and everything else, so to speak.
Yeah. So just to elaborate on this, so if you will Google these buildings that Yael just mentioned, you won't find this because Tulu today is Tulu, but the original name was the way that Yael just described, which is Tulou. And when we moved here to the States, now I know how to pronounce the name. So Tuluau, Tulu. So we dropped the O and it remained Tulu and Tulu. But again, the origin are from these names. And of course, you can think about it as a potentially Hebrew name. Of course, in British, it will be Tulu. So every name, every language with its own.
So that brings us to more serious stuff, and that is, what is the product, service / activity of Tulu, and what value, what pain do you address? What value do you bring in addressing that pain? And try to do it at this point with nothing about the numbers.
Nothing but the numbers?
Nothing about the numbers, sorry. Later I'll ask you to tell the story just with a few numbers.
Okay. So Yael mentioned that I was, in my previous life, I was an architect, and I will mention that Yael, in her previous life, was an environmental entrepreneur. And I believe that Yael's alternative approach to consumerism and my understanding of the built environment have melted to what eventually Tulu would become. And I believe that the best way to capture the essence of Tulu is that we're riding on two fundamental shifts that are happening right now. One is the shift in consumption paradigms that are moving from an equation of I want something so I buy it to an equation of I need something so I use it. And the second is the rise of AI and the capabilities it provides us with to have a deep understanding of consumers' mindset. And within the intersection of these two shifts, we're building Tulu's product access and usage platform, which is already the largest in the world, based on two engines. One, Tulu units. These are micro retail touchpoints that we're putting right where people live, many residential and student housing buildings, although we have also a few hotels, few office buildings. And we're allowing people, the residents in these buildings, very convenient on-demand access to products.
Try to describe this physically for people, because until you see one, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the best way, to describe something is to give an example of what people already know, and what people already know are vending machines. So we hate of saying that Tulu is a vending machine, extended vending machine, but if you want to try to visualize this, it's like a very fancy vending machines that people can, with an app, unlock items. So anything from a vacuum cleaner to a karaoke machine to a projector. They can also buy things like ice creams and potato chips. So with the app, they just go downstairs, take the item, use it, and return it in a very convenient way. However, what we've learned is that unlike selling a product where you only need to fool someone once, when you're trying to create a usage habit, you can fool them for the first time, but if they won't find a true value in the product, you won't be able to fool them for the second time. And this is where the second engine that we've developed comes into play. This is the Tulu Brain. And the Tulu Brain takes all of the usage-based data, and with AI, it transforms this data into insights that are allowing us to have this deep understanding of the consumer and to increase engagement and usage.
So the way I think about it, but this is also, as you say, doesn't do justice to the reality. It's almost like going inside of a three-dimensional vending machine, and with lots of different sort of ports in the vending machine. But I'm sure that's not a very good description either, but you walk inside of it, right?
So the original Tulu was Tulu rooms. And then as you have, some track record with Tulu from a time perspective, this is what we sold you back then, these rooms. But I think it's now 5 years ago, ever since we changed it to a really like a vending machine type. So it's a plug and play vending solution inside the building. So it's not a room that you're walking inside like we used to have at the beginning. It's very scalable, like an IKEA kit that you're sending it to the sites, being built on site, and you just need a wall and the socket.
But before we get into some of the more complex business, what are some of the things that people use, rent?
we truly vary from different categories. What we like to think about it is the jobs to be done around the house. So we have, you got to clean. We have cleaning appliances, vacuum cleaner to upholstery cleaner, robot mop, robot vacuum, carpet cleaner, and so on. Then we have entertainment item like a PlayStation, Xbox, VR. We have utility items like a drill, a toolbox. We have a printer, a very, very popular item, micromobility in some markets like a scooter and bicycles. And then we vary from air mattresses to a karaoke machine, like Yishai said. So we really try to touch at least one category in a house that we think enough people in a building will find value in.
And you use the data to make sure that what you're offering is what people actually will use, and it won't just sit there.
Exactly. So everything is data driven. For us, it's truly not just data driven, but we actually see where we make mistakes. We had multiple encounters where we really thought something was going to work, and then users actually showed us that they may say they want it, but they're not actually using it. So in today's units, you'd find the best sellers, the essential items. But also, it's important to say that we still add items that are important for what users think that would make their life in their building better, and we'll talk about it.
Can I rent a cat?
Not yet.
You always
Or a child, because those are things you'd love for someone else to take care of them and then just pull them out when you need. That's the
for you to give. It's not for you to take. I don't think anyone rents the child. They will want to put it in the Tulu unit at home that someone else will take it.
I'm going to push back on that one. As a grandfather, I can tell you this is the benefit of being a grandfather. You take them out, you check them out, and then you return them, and somebody else takes care of them. It's fantastic. It's a real scam. But you have to work hard and wait long for it. So let's we can go in this in a few different directions, but I think it'd be really interesting to understand. You talk a little bit. I think you use the word ecosystem in some of your presentations. So that hasn't come through yet. Can you explain what you mean by that?
So if we go back to this notion of how are we cracking the consumer, so Yael said we need to find the right mix of products for a building prior to even launching this building with Tulu, right? So we have the Tulu generator. The Tulu generator knows what is the right curation to generate for a specific building based on the characteristics. And then we want to personalize the digital experience for each resident within this building. So what will convert maybe a student that is living in this building versus their neighbor that is a young family within the same building is not necessarily the same product. So the students, because of all of the data, we will know to highlight the PlayStation, and with a young family, we will highlight the vacuum cleaner. And this really what eventually helps us to crack the consumer. I'm saying this because the more buildings that we're adding, more in-building touch points, more Tulu units, the more access we have to consumers. The more access we have to consumers, the more data that we can create. The more data that we're creating, the more insights that we're generating that are providing value for each node in this network of in-building touch points. And this is a very strong flywheel and network effect in which every new building that we're adding to the system is providing value for every other existing building. In order to grow this network of in-building touch points, we've created this ecosystem that you've mentioned that connects on the one hand the demand side, these are the consumers. On the other hand, the supply side, these are the brands, based on distribution infrastructure, which are the buildings. And this is a very strong ecosystem. We're now operating in more than, and I'm going into numbers, so just let me know if it's okay.
Before you hang on once, I definitely want to get to the numbers, but I want to understand this a little bit better because you actually provide tangible, unique value to these different actors, let's say, in the ecosystem. And I want you to explain that a little bit more because I think one of the powers and the stabilities, and you say flywheel, comes from that fact. It's not just the people renting the vacuum cleaner. Who else? Is talking about property managers, the brands, and others that I don't know about.
Sure. So eventually, the business model behind this ecosystem is maybe the most important thing that we managed to to build in order to really scale Tulu. And this business model is monetizing the unique value proposition that we have for all of the three stakeholders in the ecosystem. So the consumers are subscribing to Tulu. They're paying $10 a month. They're getting access to use products as much as they want for the first hour per session. So they can take the vacuum cleaner for an hour, then the VR headset for an hour, the scooter for an hour. Everything is great. If they're using it for an hour, if the kid using it for more than an hour within a session, let's say they took the projector now to watch the World Cup, so they'll need to pay extra for additional hours. So they took it for 3 hours, they get the first hour for free, and they'll pay for the additional 2 hours. If they're buying things in the Tulu shop, the ice creams, the potato chips, naturally they need to pay extra. And if they're printing, we also have a printer in Tulu, they also need to pay extra for this as well. So these are the consumers. The landlords, the properties, are seeing Tulu as an amenity that they can provide for the residents for two things: resident acquisition in a very competitive landscape, and also renewals, so residents retention. Tulu, unlike many other amenities that they provide, is actually a useful amenity. People are actually using Tulu, and we can show the landlords the potential increase in the likelihood for someone to renew their lease if they have Tulu in the building, and then they can do the math of why is it important to invest in Tulu to get more acquisition and retention of residents. So they're paying us a one-time setup fee that covers for us the cost of manufacturing the Tulu unit and shipping it to the site, and then they're paying us a monthly fee for the service, and we're doing revenue sharing of the consumer revenue with the landlords. But it's important to note that the landlords are not seeing this as a profit center. It is an amenity. They're investing in their residents. They understand this. The revenue sharing helps us in two ways. A, it eases the pain. The effective cost is lower. And B, it aligns the interest for this to be successful. So the landlords are pushing Tulu in the building, and it's a very efficient cost of acquisition of the consumer. We're practically just working with the landlord to send emails on behalf of us and put brochures and stuff. And they're also supporting the day-to-day maintenance of the Tulu units. And that helps us to really scale Tulu in the amount of cities that I won't say yet until we start talking about.
I'll let you talk about the numbers, right?
Yeah, but scale Tulu globally with retaining a very lean team. The third part of this ecosystem are the brands. And the brands are seeing Tulu as an amazing potential for brand exposure. So think about it, or they think about it as a try before you buy of 2 decades. I have now a power drill by Bosch in my student dorms, and then in my first apartment in the city. So eventually, when I'll move to the suburbs and I will buy the power drill, I'll have this equation of power drill equals Bosch. So this is one thing. The second thing, they saw the Tulu brain that we talked about, and they said, wow, we can learn from real people in the natural living environment, how they're using our products without any biases. Amazing. So we're also monetizing our data and insights with these brands.
So and Yael, please feel free to chime in here. What's really striking to someone from the outside is that this must be, I'm going to talk about the property managers for a second. This must be an incredibly powerful value for them, because I could also imagine a situation in which they would say, you know what, you're using my real estate, pay me for it. But that's not it. They're paying you for it one way or the other, right?
I guess my favorite stories are of landlords that asked us to pay them, and then they are now paying us for the partnership. And I'll expand. This is not just an ecosystem. I think that's the beauty of marrying between hardware and software. That has always been the unique point of Tulu. We are micro retail touchpoints in buildings, and therefore it just has so much more win-win-win opportunities for everyone in it. And that's why when Yishai and I hear prop tech, I think both kind of feel like, that's like a misdiagnosis of who we are. But we are, in a way, at the intersection of a very interesting few industries, which is the consumer industry and the real estate industry, that when you put them together, you get something very powerful and potent in our industry. And landlords at the beginning, I think in every 3 conversation, one would say, I can do it myself. Why would I hire you guys? I can just buy a couple of vacuums, a couple of printers, and let residents do it. What we would say usually, come on, go on and do it. It's much more than just putting appliances on a wall, on a shelf. It's, as Yishai said, unfortunately, the hard thing and the opportunity is to crack the consumer. So for landlords, we are taking that away from them, and we're telling them, we actually know your residents better than you do at some points. And at some other point, this is a partnership. And nowadays, as Yishai said, landlords are looking for more and more creative ways to attract Gen Zs and millennials. These are considered to be an enigma for many landlords. COVID truly changed everything in what landlords thought residents were willing to pay for, are willing to pay for, and what would actually keep them to stay. We like to say that a building as long ago stopped being just 4 walls. So what we're seeing with our partners is a real curiosity and creativity to find more techniques to keep people in their buildings, and the willingness to invest in services like Tulu, which is quite likely a fraction of the price of what they paid for a golf simulator, an extension of the pool, and other amenities that maybe people don't use.
Or 5 people use them and only on the 4th of July and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
So now let's talk about the numbers. So give us some idea. We're talking about 1 building, 2 building. Obviously not.
Yeah. So after putting our first buildings now 6 years ago here in the US,
In New York, correct? Or around New York.
Yeah, so Tulu now is for a few years now. It's a global company operating in North America, US, Canada, and UK and Europe. 14 countries, more than 65 cities, more than 500 buildings, and we're adding a new Tulu every day. Now we have an outreach for more than 250,000 potential consumers right where they live, and plan to have this.
So adding Tulu means adding a location.
Adding a Tulu
every day.
Tulu building, yes.
Yeah.
And the Tulu building, the average Tulu building is about 400 units.
So can you give some idea of revenues, et cetera, or is that still, I mean, you're a private company, obviously. You're not going to tell too much, but can some range of revenues, it's 1 million, 100 million, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, so it's somewhere in between. We have the path to 100 million. We'll get there in the next few years. Currently, we're a bit more than $12 million in AR. Burned very fast. Planning to end this year at 17. So
you almost doubling, and that's not simple. So we have to talk about this growth and what that growth entails, some of the mistakes that you might have made, some things that you think you got right, and looking up into the future, things that challenges that you're really going to have to deal with. Take either one of those 3 and tell us about those.
We can start with maybe talking about the challenge of growing a hardware component of the company. In growth rate, it will be more similar to software companies.
That's very interesting. So let's just be clear. You're actually providing the sort of the physical infrastructure for the Tulu. It's not just an idea. It's not software. It's as software, but it's physical.
It's physical. And for years, we were actually, when talking to investors, we were hiding this physical component. We had to show it, and then we said after we show the Tulu unit and the products, and at the beginning, everyone is excited about this. And then they're going back to the question, okay, is this scalable? How will they implement all of these Tulu units? What will if things break, malfunction, all of this? So we used to say, okay, everything that you saw now from a physical component, forget about this. Let's show you the digital experience and the data and everything. And, in the last year or so, ever since AI started beyond disruptive, the software only companies, but really eliminating large companies and soon industries. Now we're very happy about our hardware component. Like we're really tattooing it on our chest saying,
Why?
hardware, this is for the long run. This has very high retention, more than 98% retention rate in buildings. Like once you're putting a Tulu unit in a building, it's a done deal. Like think about laundry machines in buildings, laundry rooms. These are there for decades.
Yeah.
So very happy today about our hardware.
So now when they ask you, where's the moat? You can say, well, among other things, here's the moat. Here's
Do
the...
you want the AI to replace cleaning a vacuum? Good luck with that. But yes, the mode is an outcome. It's multiple things. It's both an outcome of having the economy of scale to support such a business like Tulu. And fortunately and luckily enough, we started Tulu where the market was very, very receptive to these kind of things. So we raised enough money to cross this critical mass point of scale to make it really financially viable. Very hard to build something from scratch like Tulu. It needs to be in the hundreds of buildings. We're already there. To start from scratch, it's almost impossible.
So let's talk a little bit about what the historical context of the pandemic, because that, had a huge impact on living patterns, especially in big cities. And that's where you started. And was that an obstacle or an opportunity, or was it both? How did that change things?
I don't think that there was an entrepreneur or founder back in March 2020 that wasn't terrified and like quite literally having a stomach ache and other things. We had just raised a small round and we had plans to do 100 buildings that year. And, when you're early stage, you're just so focused on those goals and the revenue goals. And then we slowly realized that we're not just pitching our product to landlords, we're pitching it to an industry that's day after day in March 2020 is closing down more physical spaces, is focusing on social isolation. And so each pitch to a landlord about, hey, we have this great concept, which you share a vacuum with your neighbor, people would sort of laugh at our face. And we had some landlords that, were like, this is interesting, but not now, let's circle back. So the pandemic in one way was kind of terrifying at the beginning, but then we already had multiple buildings in New York and we said, okay, we'll take a couple of weeks to figure it out, whatever we need to do as entrepreneurs, but let's pour as much love as we can to our existing clients. And that was a big turning point, I think, in our mindset and in Tulu's trajectory, because what ended up happening is we just poured all our creativity into those couple of buildings we had. It was less than 10, but we gave them gifts and campaigns and emails. And we saw that people, even though many people left New York, the people that stayed in New York were using Tulu more and more. So our usage went up and more interesting case studies started happening. We added the Tulu shop, which was something that we knew we were going to add, but it kind of forced us to add it. For those who are in New York, toilet paper and other essential items were very hard to get, and we had them. So we kind of turned that very big struggle into an opportunity within our existing market. And at the same time, we were able to think outside the box, and in our case, outside the borders, and also scale Tulu globally, which I'll let Yishai talk about. But that was sometimes when you least expect it, you get a no from one side and you have to look. And all of a sudden, for us, it was in the form of a stranger from the Netherlands.
So Yishai and I had a friendly argument about going overseas or not, and I want to come back to that, and I want to find out who was right and who was wrong, because I was arguing the focus. Well, I was arguing that focus, you get network effects, you get of staying in New York. Sort of first you take Manhattan, then you take Berlin, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think I'm wrong, right? I was wrong.
We only took one way, so we only can
That's true.
what happened with the way that they're
The path not taken, right?
Yeah, but yes, I do think you are wrong, and the reason for that, and Yael really well put it together about the opportunity that the pandemic gave us. In a weird way, one of these opportunities was that people were very bored. So this guy reached out to us from the Netherlands, and he said, "I'm bored," and he saw an article that was published by maybe some I had board people in the Netherlands, and they mentioned Tulu. We had no idea. And he reached out. Others were reaching out as well back then. Did they want to have Tulu in Brazil, in Mexico, in Australia? He was from the Netherlands. And I told everyone the same. I told them, hey, bring us buildings and we'll talk. And he took it very seriously. And he brought us the flagship building of the largest property manager and owner in the world, Greystar. And he told me, hey, I have a building for you. And I said, okay, which building? And then he sent me the address of and pictures of this building. And then it was, yes, this building by Greystar. So we've met with Greystar and we told them, yeah, of course we'll come and do Tulu for you. And back then, it was still these rooms, Dan, that you talked about, not the Tulu units. And we were here in New York. And after we said yes to Greystar and not taking your advice and saying, okay, let's go to Amsterdam, it will be fine. Then we learned that we cannot send anyone during the pandemic to the Netherlands. So we'll build and install it. So my sister back then, she was studying in the Netherlands, master's in design, and she had a friend, a very capable one. So we sent files to this friend, and he built the Tulu room. And for the first time, we used the on-site staff to help us with the day-to-day maintenance. And we learned that, and no one from Tulu got to visit this building, I think a year after it was even launched. And then we learned that Tulu can really operate without borders. And I think that it helped us to understand that we can look at customers rather than geography. And from a scalability perspective, it reduced the sales cycle, and it also increased the network effect because we met people in the US that knew about us because the building's in Europe and vice versa.
So this was kind of a partnership. And my understanding is that you do have partnerships with some of the larger real estate companies, office managers, et cetera. Is that accurate? And if so, let's talk about where these partnerships fit in to your growth strategy.
Well, I just want to tie a partnership story to Yishai's story about the Netherlands because, as an investor, then obviously there's, you've seen hundreds of companies make mistakes or not make mistakes, but the network effect, these are all very true on paper. I think as having to face a pandemic and as having to, it's like you raise money and every day counts. So we had to just act quickly. And we did what we now really proudly call scale the unscalable. And I think the Netherlands was a bet, but then a couple months later, Greystar said, hey, we have 10 buildings for you in London, because we said, we're no longer going to scale with you for just one building. We said, let's keep being crazy. Let's keep scaling the unscalable, but let's start negotiating how unscalable this can become. And then that led us to open a warehouse in the UK and hire people in the UK. So we realized that if we are taking the crazy non-traditional network effect approach, that maybe it will be a network effect, but within our partners and not within our geographic, that changed not our North Star, but it changed our values. We said, we're going to take those clients, that's all the big logos that we can grow into $1 billion valuation with and grow as big as we can. We're going to take those logos and we're going to give them everything sort of that they're asking for in a right way. And then when Greystar London came about, we just were smarter and we were able to suggest what we thought was better for the company.
What does that mean, giving them everything that they asked for?
So maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but I think when we realized Greystar was a real partner and a partner that was willing to grow with us, was willing to choose us over other vendors, and they want us to come to London, we found a way to come to London.
We opened an office in London for them.
So in a way, it's like, in a way, customer success, partnership success.
Yes, it
became a priority.
It's really you follow your customers, not just as as a beautiful sentence on the wall, but like you follow your customers to wherever they are ready for you, because that was our strategy to then scale Tulu globally.
So, Yael, you mentioned mistakes, and I want to come back to that in just a moment, but I'll give you a chance to get ready for that. So, in a way, you've added on another stakeholder. So you have the property managers, you have the consumers, you have the brands, and now you have the partners, which are the large owners of these large properties. I guess they would align mostly with the property managers, but not only, is my guess. Let's come back this not the concept, the reality of mistakes, because you don't get anywhere without making mistakes. Reflect back on some of the mistakes that you think you made and that other entrepreneurs might learn from. The one mistake.
You need help? I have a.
Yeah, go for it.
This is something Yishai and I spoke a lot about after Brian Chesky wrote his Y Combinator article about zero to one managers and day one mentality. I think after grinding for multiple years, you really start hoping you can bring the next generation of people to grind as much as you do, and maybe they'll know better what's the strategy or how to execute the strategy. And I think we're kind of in love with the idea to bring the right people to help us with our biggest problems and that they will solve it. And we brought really talented people throughout the way, but I think we underestimated the importance of day one mentality and 0 to 1 building. And sometimes we were able to bring amazing people, but they were not excited enough about the hard reality of this is still a startup that has real life problems.
So these are more people with, say, a larger company mentality.
Exactly, that they were not in love with the problem as much as the fastest way to execute or moving on to other more sexy problems in the company.
Now, getting firing or parting ways with people, especially senior people that you've hired, is one of the most stressful things that an entrepreneur does, right? It's not easy. You worry about it. You sweat over it. You ask your board about it. You do a lot of things. Yes, your partners, your parents, whoever you. What did you learn about that process of realizing that there's not a good fit, and how you dealt with it?
So it's a good question, and what Tia just mentioned, that was a very strong learning, and I think that when you decide that this is not the right fit, eventually you need to understand that you are the problem, and it's not
Say more about that. That surprises me. Go ahead, say more.
Problem because you didn't know enough what you actually needed, so you didn't know what to ask. You just took the idea of, okay, this is a good CV, or this is a very impressive person, and this is an impressive and capable person, and this is a good CV, but maybe it's not a good CV for Tulu, and maybe this is not the right fit for Tulu. But you or us in that context, we weren't asking ourselves this hard question.
Can you give a little more concreteness? I know it's sensitive and you're not going to divulge.
Yeah, so we won't go
Details.
with roles or the people, but going back to what Yael said about this fantasy that people will do things better than you, because we said at the beginning, Yael coming from, and she was hugging trees before Tulu, trees. Yeah, building.
Dancing bachata.
That's what before she was dancing. So, we told ourselves all the time, and I think still telling ourselves, that for sure, if other people that are very experienced will build Tulu, it will succeed better. Why? Because, it makes sense. The concept makes sense. And it's just about having the right people. And for sure, there are people that are more capable to do this than us. And then instead of really understand that a company needs a specific person for a specific period of time, and the person that you need for this time is not the person that you will need in the next phase of the company, So you're creating this misalignment because you're bringing someone that actually saw it all. And if you feel, okay, if he or she saw it all, That's great. It's a lot of experience that this person will bring to the company, to Tulu. But maybe we don't need one that saw it all because they're already thinking about where Tulu is at in 3 years. And we need to think about where Tulu is at in 3 months. And this misalignment, which is, again, it was our responsibility to have this misalignment. This is what caused eventually for us to separate. And it helps, I think, to understand that it's on us and not on this person, also with the separation, because then very genuinely you can say, but very genuinely, it's not about you, it's about me.
So I imagine you have advisors, people, investors, you have board members and so on. Were they more on the side of you need, quote unquote, adult supervision or people who have been in big companies and seen billions of dollars? Or were they saying, hey, you got to be careful to make sure the fit is there and that's more important than the resume and the CV?
So Ben Horowitz in his book, The Thing About the Hard Things, so he's saying that the worst advice that you can take from your investors is that you need to bring someone now that will help you to build your company in the next 3 years. And this is the worst advice that you can take. And that you need to do the role of this executive that you bring before you bring this person, because then you really know what is needed. Luckily, we don't have these kind of investors. And when we did take an advice, they told us, for example, when we brought our amazing VP sales, we had 2 candidates. One was very experienced, and the other was not as much. And when we consulted with one of our investors, he told us, take the one that will be with you at 9 p.m. in the office when things are tough. And
obviously, that's where you got really well.
Take Ben Horowitz, not approach, because Ben Horowitz is in this approach, but who should we avoid getting advices from?
So looking forward, and we'll end with this, you have great ambitions. You have ambitions partly that are financial or economic. You have ambitions that are also social because you both come from, let's say, a value-based standpoint. What the next few years, choose whether it's 2 to 3 or 5 to 10. How do you think you're going to get there? And what do you think you're going to have to do differently, you think? Or what the new challenges will be that will force you to do something different?
Tulu today is actually in a place that what works for 500 buildings would work for 5,000 buildings. And here we talked about Tulu being resilient for everything that the AI is now, the destruction that the AI is bringing, is actually really leveraging from AI. And we have implemented AI agents in the operational side that is doing the procurement for us and doing the tasking of the people that are doing the maintenance. And this is now a very, very scalable. So we really got to a point that this is not a question of if, and it was a question for quite some time. It's not a question of if. The demand, it's a very strong product market fit with the landlords. We managed to bring the level of adoption of the consumers to a very good place. We know how to bring a building, to launch it, to maintain it, to make it perform. So it's just a question of the pace. And now Tulu is in a place that we have a very clear path to profitability, and we own our destiny. And getting external investments at this moment in time is just if we want to accelerate the pace in which we want to get to more and more buildings. And we do want to have Tulu as the standard in the way that people live. We're doing this through allowing them with this on-demand access where they live. We want to touch as many people as possible. and we have time.
So it's the flip question. Maybe you can address this, Yael. So in a situation that you're in, I'm just guessing that you may have more opportunities than you can actually address. At some point, there's a tipping point where you get more opportunities, more customers, people saying, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Come to a territory that's very far away. Are you in that situation now? And if so, how do you decide what not to do?
Well, I don't think what not to do is something we never skip a good discussion. We like being challenged. We like the leadership of Tulu to also challenge priorities. But we're pretty strict on our planning. We have very direct financial goals that we're excited about. We think it's best for the company. And with new markets and such, there are things that we've gotten better at parking and unleashing when the time is right. For example, hotels. For example, office buildings. For example, Australia, Japan, Asia. Like these are all great, amazing things. But we just take our planning seriously. And whenever we feel like something is within the general goals of the company, we say yes to it. Unfortunately, what we're learning is that focus is not just for the company, but also for its incredible managers. And every time we say yes to something, we say no to something else. So it's just about prioritization.
So it's different situation when somebody, a board Dutchman calls you up and says, hey, try this out. You'll have a discipline in looking at that.
Tulu has always been an amazing magnet for ideas. I would say for every conversation Yishai and I have with someone, they give us 5 or 6 ideas for the business. We always enjoy listening to them because these are ideas that we once thought about. With Tulu, the hard thing is what not to do and how to stay focused. And I think now, luckily, with technology, dropping features and shipping things, that's something that we did wait a couple of years on product improvements that now we're just doing because the cost to ship them is much cheaper than it used to be. So these are things that we're more generous with than we used to be. But now with being very attentive to our goals, we have to be strict and we have to move fast and break things.
Okay, I have a ending last kind of crazy question. People listening to this, a lot of them don't live in Tulu buildings. If they want to go see a Tulu, is there a way to go online and say, where's the nearest Tulu to where I live? Or is this all within the confines? Do you need a key or whatever to get into it?
If you want a Tulu in your building, it's very easy. You gotta message us, and we'll make sure to get Tulu in your building if your building is within our size and our geography. But at the moment, Tulu is an in-building service for the residents of the building. But I guess there are a few hotels and office spaces that they can go into and check it out.
Okay, and that'll be all online. Okay, well, look, I've kept you longer than I promised to keep you, so I will let you go. Thank you so much, Yishai, and also Yael. This has been extraordinarily, well, for me, stimulating, and I'm sure for thousands of other people who are listening to this. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Dan, for being with us in this amazing journey.
And if I can help in any way, obviously I will. This is Dan Eisenberg signing off, 40th episode of Scale Up Podcast. If you're here, that means you know where to find me. The problem is there are tens of thousands of people out there who really would benefit from listening to all this wisdom as it builds up. So please let them know about it. This is great, and we're all going to be scaling up together. Thank you all very, very much.